Hey everyone, it's Friday, and that means we're back with another episode of Office Hours. I'm Sarah, and with me today is Cynthia.
Hello.
Hello. We are partners at Shift Collaborative, and we're here again with Office Hours. So this is, if you're watching, this is your opportunity to ask us any questions relating to marketing at all that might be on your mind, and we will attempt to answer them. So if you have a question like that, you can put it in the YouTube live chat, or you can send us an email, and it's in the wherever you're pointing, somewhere in
My
YouTube.
mom was a flight attendant, so we have abilities
yeah.
to.
There was always the two fingers.
Two fingers, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we'll keep being marketers. Not flight attendants.
Clearly, my skills are not in the flight attendant world.
No, I would be directing people all sorts of places. But if you have a question that you don't want to put in the live chat because you're shy or whatever reason, you just want to write a half paragraph or whatever it is, you can email us at officehours@shiftcollaborative.com.
Absolutely.
So what's happening this week in the world of whatever marketing?
Well, it was an eventful week, just as a general thing. And so there were sort of larger national and I'm sure international issues going on, and then very fine-tuned small internet issues, and then Facebook always.
Yeah.
So one of the things, obviously, that was a big issue was the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And that may not really seem like a thing that would be an advertising world, but I know that there has been some coverage of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's the legacy that is Ruth Bader Ginsburg and all of the great work that she did in her lifetime, but it's, and we can talk about that in its mark in marketing, but also sort of she has become almost like a consumer product in the past few years, where you can buy shirts. And I was watching CBS today or whatever this morning, and Gail said she bought a bathing suit with Ruth's head all over it. I guess I'm not sure, but it just there's just some people that are inspired by her and want her likeness, as part of their wardrobe. So so there's that aspect of it. But I think with this article that you're pulling up is really what is her particular mark on our industry, right?
Absolutely. I mean, she, first of all, she had such a huge influence on the role of women in our society, on what we're allowed and not allowed to do. And it's stuff that happened, her involvement was before either you or I were born. And so, and for us and for people who are younger, we can tend to not realize all of the impact of things that she and other pioneers and sort of truth-sayers and really passionate advocates, the kinds of things that they achieved. So the things that she had to say and her viewpoints on the world, I think, are part of why the things that she say has such impact and why they sound so resonant to us.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of Mad Men, I'm a fan of that show. I think even if you're not in the advertising industry, it can be an entertaining show to watch. But what you notice in that era and in that time is that women had a particular role, and it was typically administrative or secretarial, and not just their role, but how they were treated in the workplace was not good either. And so, she had an impact on changing that. And, the fact that if you look at the sort of the statistics of who has the most purchasing power, it is women. So the ads that were being created in, 1960s era were being created by men for women, and not to say that all men don't understand women, but, to come up with advertising, you have to really get in the mindset of the person you're selling to. And if you don't have a woman in the room to, help lend to that experience into the, the thinking and the thought process of a woman, then how are you going to get it right?
Exactly. I mean, you as well as anyone one can apply sort of empathy or sympathy and trying to see things from another person's point of view. Actually, having people who've been through the experience be part of the discussion and part of the creative story can only be an improvement on it. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of scenes, I think, just in the first season of Mad Men that really kind of dive into that. And you can also take a look at the documentary Art and Copy that we talk about all the time, that where there's a few of the women who were in the advertising world in real life in that period, the influence that they had, the new perspectives that they brought in, not just about for women, but for people in general. And just new creative sparks and new ways of looking at things. So the fact that, when she entered law school, as this article is making clear, women were only like 3% of the legal profession. And it was not necessarily that different in any of the others, other than maybe healthcare. But even then, it's only certain areas, certain roles were considered appropriate.
Right, right. So as you said, sort of at the top of this is like, I think, we live in our moment and in our today, and oftentimes we forget the trailblazers that, their hard work and efforts and so much energy and giving up so much of their own personal life to make a change like this happen. And she's one of those people, and we can kind of forget about that. And so her passing has given, a lot of people to stop and look at that legacy and think about it and figure out, how to continue to have that legacy endure and how we're going to be inspired by it. And so it's been a good time for reflection.
Yeah. And remembering that, as much change as we've seen happen and just being awed really by the impact that she's had in so many areas of life, advocating for people different from herself and in so many areas, you can almost feel intimidated by that. But the quote that they highlight in this article that I've highlighted on the screen, real change, enduring change happens one step at a time. And that's maybe also a thing that we should carry from this, that if in each day we're spending a little bit of time and making even just small progress, or 2 steps forward, 1 step back is still 1 step net forward. Keeping going and fighting the good fight is worth it.
It is worth it. Sometimes you have to remind yourself, but yes, it is worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's an inspiring individual. May her memory be a blessing, as people say, and just continue to try to fight the good fight.
That's right. And she's making making waves even with her passing and her funeral. She's going to be the first female to be laid in state. Is that or given a state funeral? So that's impressive as well. I'm glad that's happening.
I'm glad they're looking at her that way and acknowledging her, memorializing her in that way. So sad but inspiring kind of discussion. That we saw some other interesting things this week that are maybe not as heavy, maybe a little bit lighter.
A little bit lighter. And what could be lighter than a new emoji to add to your texting world or wherever you might use emojis?
Exactly. And I think that this is maybe a good story to kind of bridge that, to bridge the gap between something kind of heavy and something not heavy at all, because it is a reaction to our current days,
sure. Yeah,
how we're feeling now. So you had spotted this, I think, in The Verge.
They did, yeah.
And here it is, face with spiral eyes. Oh.
It just I saw it and immediately. It was like, I could have used this multiple times in the past couple of months, but specifically this week was a doozy. So I'm glad it's Friday, and I'm glad that this emoji is available. It adequately explains.
It really does kind of convey how sometimes things feel, even if you go through maybe a day and you're doing all kinds of things, you're doing your stuff, and then you turn on the news or you open Twitter or Facebook and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. So that's very me. So there's actually part of a whole new crop of emoji, and there is people may not know where do emoji come from, but there is, as for so many other things, there's a board, a consortium they call the Unicode Consortium that approves them. And the reasons behind like, why is that, are that, for a communication protocol of any kind to work, people have to agree on it. And that means all the device manufacturers have to support it, different apps have to support it. And so that this Unicode Consortium is the one that sets out the standard that, I mean, you're not forced to follow it, but if you don't follow it, you've probably seen apps that have like, instead of the emojis coming up, you see a bunch of little squares. And that's because either the software hasn't been updated with the most recent version or whatever the reasons behind it. But so this is a whole bunch of a whole new one. And I think that they're all, this is listing here a couple of the others. Let me see if I can show a couple of them here on the screen. Here is the face exhaling.
I like that one too.
So there's also sigh for that one. And then this one, facing clouds. Here it is. I mean, it's almost a little bit of a lurking thing too. So that one's kind of
it is interesting, that one. They want it. It says AKA brain fog.
Oh yeah, and so I think that's what follows maybe the spinny eyes, and then heart on fire, which I think could be a number of different things. And it actually reminds me, and I hadn't taken a look at this until just this second, I think we need to tell Cummings Coffee and Candy up in Butler, Pennsylvania, because their logo is very like this. It's a flaming heart. So maybe this can be an adaptation for them for their own.
Well, to me, when I see it, it looks a little bit like a tattoo. It kind of has that, deep lines and sort of evokes that kind of a look to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit of a modern retro, if you will.
So quick question. You said that there's a body that, sort of decides what emojis to add into the mix. Who decides when to sunset something? Like, are they looking at usage and saying like, this emoji is not getting any use? Or is it just like, once it's in, it's in, we never get rid of them?
I think that's a super good question. I mean, I know that dictionaries will sometimes sunset things. I'm not aware, I'm not knowledgeable enough about the consortium, the Unicode Consortium, to be able to answer that. So it does seem like that you would think that things would get closed just because, I mean, how many emojis can there be? If there's hundreds and hundreds, don't they become less useful? I don't know. Yeah. We'll have to research that and bring it back.
I think I don't know. What made me think about it is like, it's kind of like the birth of a new emoji, but what happens? Do they die ever? Right. So anyway, we should look that up.
Okay, we'll find that out. We'll report back next week on what that might be. I think as I think about it, it's not, people don't revere texts in a way, you're not preserving them, but I know that archivists are starting to think about how do we preserve tweets and so on, and all of, because they become part of, the ongoing discourse, they become part of history. And so how, the idea that like imagine certain letters, like we're not using the letter, I don't know, W all that much. Do we really need it anymore? Like you wouldn't get rid of that. No, or I mean, maybe a character on the keyboard. Are we using like every character on the keyboard we use all the time, like asterisk or tilde, anyway. So it's hard to imagine.
One?
Yeah. Do you use tilde?
One. I like it.
Oh, I like it too. It means about to me. So like, it's like 5 or so if you put like a tilde right next to it.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm using it wrong because I think that instead of, how sometimes you'll see like a testimonial and then it'll be like a dash and then Sarah, awesome customer. I like to use the swoopy thing because it just looks a little bit different, interesting. And it's just saying about-ish Sarah.
Oh, right. Yes, that's what you're saying. We think Sarah said it. Could have been her. It could have been somebody else.
Anybody else.
Someone in Sarah's area. But so obviously that is also used as, in other languages, it's used as a character, like an accent figure on, and in Spanish, for example. Yeah, so, we're already using it in kind of fluffy ways, for a lot of these symbols. So in the same way, if we want to take texts and social media tweets and so on seriously and make them archived, I think it'd be hard to get rid of an emoji. But they all
somebody used it at some point,
right? And do you want to throw away that person's word? No, keep it forever.
Okay. Well.
Anyway, but so look for the new emojis on your phone and on your favorite apps starting sometime in 2021.
Oh, we have to wait.
We have to wait.
They've made this emoji for this moment in time, and we have to wait.
Who knows what we're going to need next year?
Well, I know, but I need this one right now.
I need this now too. I'm not disagreeing.
They giveth and they taketh away. Okay.
Also in this current period of time, where as people are relying on delivery services more and more, and in particular as restaurant delivery has become a bigger and bigger part, at least of life here in America, and I know in the UK and elsewhere in Europe. As those things have become bigger and bigger, those major providers of those delivery services are starting to get even more attention, and so there was a post on LinkedIn that kind of really brought it to the issues at hand a little bit to the foreground. It's fairly straightforward, but I think it raises some good points. Let me pull this up if I can.
You can do it.
I'm here. All right. So I think actually you had seen this on the LinkedIn.
Yes, I forgot I did, but I did. And it's kind of highlighting the issue. This is kind of maybe classified under brand confusion, and when you think about what is a brand, what is that all made up of? It's things that we know, like a logo and all of the things that people interact with as well. And so if a customer is interacting with the driver that drops off the food, that is part of in their mind, the consumer, that's part of the brand experience, and that is an extension. Or I think perhaps consumers are probably just a little confused about which service they got what through these days. I get things delivered all over the place, and so there's blurring of lines right now, especially, and this billboard highlights it pretty evidently.
The fact that it's a billboard, I think, is so interesting that this is, it looks for a second there, you might think just from the layout that it was something that would have been posted on social media, but it is a social media-ish built design for a billboard to just raise awareness. And I think in a really effective way, really talking to the Yelp layout and pushing back on it.
Now, I just have to assume that a ton of research was put into which billboard to the location, the direction, the light on it, because this is a lot of text for a billboard. Typically you see a billboard, you get 3 to 6 words to, sort of imprint on somebody. And so I'm assuming that there was a lot of thought that went into this particular choice of location, and, to really allow, is it in a place where there's a lot of traffic and people are stopped for a significant period of time, but they still do a good job of design, even given that you can tell, you don't have to read the top part necessarily to know kind of what's going to happen here.
My assumption, which I didn't take a moment to think about it when I first saw this, because I was really absorbed in the idea of it, but that Karen is not real. She doesn't live in Sherman Heights, and that is not her hair, right? But it also kind of flashes back to this challenge that people who are named Karen are now feeling really put upon, because they're being picked on.
Yes, they are.
But here, Karen's KillerReviews.com, they're actually kind of encapsulating that, the soccer mom, suburban lady, in a whole domain name, really kind of focusing on this issue. One of the responses to this that I thought was interesting, I'm not sure if how far it's going to be down now, right? But that some restaurants have been, instead of employing a DoorDash or whatever service is being used, Grubhub or whatever, that are you know, so their business practices are also sort of questionable. You know, that do the drivers get adequately compensated? Are they really causing more trouble for restaurants than they're delivering benefit? But some restaurants are like taking some of the servers who are currently not employed and employing them as delivery people, so that you're not, if you don't go through a service like this, but if you can deliver yourself, maybe that's going to be better for that like brand integrity point that you were making earlier.
Right, if you can. And I guess that, you know, from a restaurant's perspective, they're perhaps using one of these services because they can't do it on their own, or it's cost prohibitive to do it on their own, even though that's a double-edged sword because these services cost money. So, you know, but I guess the restaurant has a reason for outsourcing this particular thing. And so whenever you outsource anything as a company, you're taking a risk, and you have to really do your homework and say, you know, is this going to be the right service for my brand? I'm going to invest in this thing. Is it going to, you know, portray me in the best light and convey what I would if I were out there delivering the food? So it's a hard choice. I'm sure, and restaurants are faced right now with so many challenges. I can't even imagine. So, I mean, I think if a restaurant has to use one of these services, it's I don't know if necessary.
Be aware of the brand thing, and maybe there's a way to interact for the restaurant to interact with the driver in more than just sort of shouting at them, the bags over there, but trying to actually, you know, be known as the restaurant that someone's really glad to make a delivery for, and then maybe have that person represent better. It's a tough job. I mean, and we're asking a lot of these folks to on all sides. So
yeah, for sure. It is. It's a tough world, but it's interesting when something like this, which is so current, comes up.
Yeah, and Yelp can definitely look for ways. I mean, Yelp reviews are a whole mixed bag unto themselves. Yelp can take responsibility a little bit for how its ratings are being used and whether they're truly accurate or they're rating the wrong.
Yeah. I think the restaurant, the driving service, Yelp, they all need to collaborate on a good way forward on this topic.
For sure. One last piece of news that I wanted to bring up was very sort of timely. Well, you know, is actually kind of carrying on a little discussion that we have been having over time, which is just Facebook advertising, how to make it work, and the challenges and the blessings that come with being on Facebook. So this, however, is actually like positive news, I thought, for once.
Yes. And I have not read this article, but I did see the headline, and coincidentally, I had just been on a call with a partner, a colleague of ours, and she is working on a Facebook ad. And she was like, is there anything I need to consider? And I said, well, yeah, you do. And, you know, with the image, when she was pulling together the image, and I said, you know, you really have to think about, you can only have 20% text. And she was like, oh, is that still a thing? And I was like, it is still a thing. And then literally like 4 hours later, I saw this article and I was like, okay, words.
Well, I won't take credit for finding the article. One of our team members, Kelly, who is our digital marketing manager, is the, you know, digital marketing specialist, is the person who saw it. And I'm not surprised because it's something that she's facing all the time. Dealing with customer created imagery in particular. But so the point is that for the longest time, Facebook has said that no more than 20% of an image can be like covered by or composed of text. I don't know. Part of the trouble has been like, what is 20% of an image? What does that even mean? And so like, how big is the text going to be? If it's a big font, is that okay? And so it's been pretty hard, but what people are noticing is they're noticing it. And then Facebook has officially made it official that they're getting rid of this rule. So you may still find notes in their various help screens and so on that reference this no more than 20% rule. Now they're only recommending that you don't have 20% of your image be that, because they're still saying it tends to be stronger not to, but they won't actively like hide your ads anymore, apparently.
Yeah, you're not going to get dinged for it, but there's following guidelines for optimal performance versus your ad can't show, because your ad wouldn't be approved if it had not, complied with this particular restriction. And it was so hard, for non-designers to figure this 20% thing out, that they created a tool that you could upload your image and they would tell you, Facebook would tell you if it passed or not, because it was just too hard to figure out.
Right. And what they're saying is that the first thing that people started to notice was that when you tried to click the link, your bookmarked link, to where the tool was that would tell you, is it too much text or not? All of a sudden you're being redirected somewhere else. It was just sort of mysteriously disappeared. And so that was people's first clue that this was being phased out. And now the language you'll see start to going away. Like, Facebook's just so like,
guys, just tell us. It's good news.
Come on. We're happy about this. Don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's mostly bad news. So for you, so when you have good news to share it.
So we'll put the article link in the description so you can check this out later, because there's a lot of, this is a nicely researched article. It's got a little bit about why the rule was there in the first place and some theorizing about why it's going away. My guess is that that most of online usage has become so noisy in general with these different ad formats, different kinds of video hopping in there and all sorts of things, that what used to be so that it's almost like you want some of those ads to have a little bit more noise so that you even notice them. And also because some of the things people put up just for entertainment value now also have that, and it just felt like awkward and disconnected to be so strict about the ad images. That's my guess.
Yeah, I assume that there's some reasoning and science behind the decision that they've, used to make the decision. But I think, it's a good thing. It's
a happy moment. It's a happy day. No more of this layout here where it's telling you this is the kind of thing we would see. Like, I don't know. This is the page is gone.
Yep.
Bye-bye page.
Sunset.
You're gone.
Cool. So that's the news for the week. I mean, that's our slice of the news, if you will.
Our little slice. Yeah. There's a lot more news. No, don't go out there. It's almost too much news. Just think about emojis.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've been told by our crack production team that it was actually our digital communication specialist, Stephanie, who's new to the team, who had spotted the article on Search Engine Journal. So thanks for that correction, crack production team. And
thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Cool. And so we've going to close out the news segment and move into, we're like a real bona fide thing. We have segments.
I know we need I don't know, like new camera angles to do or something like that. I think it's going to be our next innovation.
I'll do a costume change. Okay. I won't do that.
I'll do an on-site somewhere with a mask and gloves. I don't know, asbestos suit. Who knows?
We're not going to do any of those things.
But right here.
But we are going to move into our feature segment. We've been talking about this thing that we're going to talk about is something that's been coming up, I guess, for a couple of months now in our world. And so we thought we'd bring it to you all and see if you have any interest in it. Tell us what it is.
So there's in the world of branding, so in other words, of creating both symbols and sort of concepts that represent companies, entities, individuals. There is this term of art that we've been seeing float in that I think have been around for a while and are just a little bit new maybe on our radar. And the idea is if you've got a company that has a bunch of different things in it that need to be represented to the outside world, how similar or different should the branding, both the visual appearance and the style and everything of those different things be? Should they be all alike? So that it's all one sort of powerful entity and you seem sort of big and all together? Should they be very distinct so that they're targeting distinct little audiences? Or what should it be? And so the term, and I think you actually heard about this a little bit more than I did, earlier on. Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, a client of ours used it, and it's House of Brands or Branded House. And it is essentially kind of like the information architecture of your brand, and the strategy around it kind of depends on which one you decide you're going to be. And so in the case of this client, he had a couple of products, and he was trying, and they each had their own names. And when we came in, we were like, okay, let's try to organize this, because it was just a little bit confusing, and the messaging was confusing, and everything was on one site. And what we determined was, for these products, they had different distinct audiences. And so that can be a reason that you might go towards more of a house of brands model, which is you have a parent company, and then you have children companies that might have a signature product as part of them, or multiple products, but they each have a distinct audience. So I'm doing this as if you can, if you're drawing an organizational chart, you've got the parent company at the top, and then you have the sub companies or product companies underneath. So that is house of brands.
Yeah, to kind of help you with that, I found this article that I thought, so these folks at frankfiorella.com, they have a identityWise blog that this particular blog post really does dig right in. So if you've got here's your branded house thing, if you will.
Yeah. So branded house is, that the company name is also the brand, and the product name, and or the company's their sub brands don't get in the way of marketing the company. They're one and the same. And FedEx here is a good example. FedEx is in every one of their product names, as opposed to calling them something different.
The purple gets used in all of them. The other brand colors have, they're all part of a family that work together. They have probably some reasonings about the ways that when they do and don't have different symbols and tag names and sub names underneath. But all of it, you can see, it's clearly all the same brand, and people, unless they were really staring at it, might not even be thinking, why is it green this time and not orange? But there's reasons.
Yes. And so Virgin.
Another example, what with why can't I think of his name? Sir, what is his name? The created Virgin.
Branson.
Richard Branson. So his original inspiration with Virgin as it grew, and then now as it shrunk again, bringing in all the different brands, and even like originally what he had was the Virgin Atlantic, the airline. Even that brand is still kind of tied in, thanks to the sort of little bit of branding within this larger thing. So they're playing with different type and different things, but you can still see the connections between them all.
Yeah, right. So yeah, a branded house, tends to be, I don't think FedEx and Virgin are an example of this, but it tends to be a less resource intensive strategy. So it's not as expensive. It has to fit your overall brand strategy. But when you have the distinct product companies under a brand, they each demand their own marketing, advertising, copywriting resources. Whereas the branded house, you could share that, perhaps.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, absolutely. And then, so the other option is your house of brands. And the classic example, and literally every article that I looked at,
a lot.
Like, I think there's a tilde goes in here, just sort of about every approximately every article that I looked at with regards to this concept was Procter & Gamble, P&G. And this is obviously a huge consumer manufacturing giant. In many cases, some of these brands are really storied brands that have been around for a long time. Some of them then are newer. And clearly they span all sorts of things across the world, everything from makeup to cleaning products to batteries.
They have 65 product companies, and they slot them into 10 categories. So, and yet home and cleaning and all that.
And there's zero visual connection between any of them, even the ones that could be, maybe partly in the same category. When you look at CoverGirl and Olay, maybe those fonts have a little tiny bit of relationship, but not really. And same with Pantene. And Herbal Essences is a whole other world. So
Mm-hmm.
in some cases, I think that some of the companies that we think of as houses of brands, some of the brands came in as an acquisition. So the other big one that we've talked about is LVMH, which is Louis Vuitton, and I think it's Moet and Hennessy or something like that. So it's Louis Vuitton. It's all luxury goods, where Louis Vuitton is prestige style, handbags and shoes.
Handbags, wallets.
Fancy handbags.
Fancy.
And then Moet is champagne, and
Mm-hmm.
Hennessy is cognac. And if it's not Hennessy, I apologize to all the LVMH folks that are watching. And so, but clearly the champagne came in as part of a purchase, and other things did too. A lot of the, like Diageo, a lot of the alcohol companies, they've got distinct brands, and they've acquired them over time. For various behind the scenes, they're going to get some economies of scale, but the actual products themselves are being marketed to distinct enough audiences that they didn't want to lose the brand recognition of the brand that they acquired. A big part of what they bought was the brand and not the actual product.
Yeah, and I think another example would be like GM. An automaker, they might have luxury, just like, what you're just talking about, are luxury goods, luxury vehicle, more practical family car, all these different types of cars, which are marketed to different types of people, and they all have their own brands too. So
right. So from Cadillac to Oldsmobile and everything in between, you would have one company making all that stuff, but it's pretending almost as though it's at least from the consumer's point of view, until we all got super savvy about it, that they're different companies. Right. Even though eventually behind the scenes, they've been using a lot of the same chassis and things, because standards have gone up for what's allowed on the road as part of the story. And also it's just more efficient to just have one set of tooling and one set of skills and ways to do it. And then just the styling on the outside and the image that it projects becomes the part that's distinct.
So it's kind of what you're talking about is highlighting that, there's the brand strategy and what you present to the world. And then there's the, operational strategy can be completely different, which is like, we are all in, like, these all are in 2 factories or something, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to have the brand strategy be also how you organize the companies necessarily. It doesn't, they're kind of distinct things, perhaps, in some cases.
And then so people have often put it as like, am I a branded house or a house of brands? Or what are we here? What are we trying to be? And it's hard because as you're making decisions about campaigns and, should we do a refresh and make all of our brands look more alike, or, and kind of try to capitalize on that shared knowledge, or do we keep them distinct because we're trying to be super focused and niche? And then there's other companies that are just, hey, you know what? We've got both. We are both. And so the biggest example and the easiest one, I think, for most of us today to think about is Disney, because they've got Disney that we think of, the Walt Disney, the theme parks and the movies. When you think about it, those are 2 different things, but they really do overlap a lot, because the content of the theme park becomes the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and the contents of the movie become part of I don't know what's the ride they have now.
Yeah, they have different. Oh, they have so many. Who knows?
Yeah, but then they also had all these other acquisitions as they really acquired things for business reasons, like the ABC television family network, ESPN, and so on. And they kept all of those distinct brands, but then you can see still some relationships as they've tried to blend things together, where some of the stuff is very heavily branded to Disney, and other things, Marvel Universe, maybe some people who watch those movies are not aware that that's coming out of the Disney world anymore.
Right. Yeah, I do think, like you say, that consumers are a little bit more savvy on some of these things these days, and they know there's a parent company behind a lot of these things. But in many cases, you just kind of maybe stumble upon it, or you don't realize it, especially if it's a newer acquisition. You may not. Right.
But to the questions that I know that you've recently been hearing from from multiple clients, what should we be doing? Should we be trying to make things look similar? If I'm launching a new thing, should it be branded like the old things? Should it have its own flavor? And you were talking a little bit there about sort of the cost and the marketing side of the world.
Right. So when you decide to do one of these strategies, you have to think about, the implications from a budgeting standpoint and advertising standpoint, because, the amount of time, effort, and energy it takes to market one thing altogether in the branded house strategy is completely different from the house of brand strategy. So ultimately, this one client, we decided to go towards the house of brands strategy because they really needed to be communicating with distinct audiences, have their own websites. We created a new logo for the company that kind of broke out from the original product. And he's got another company that's not related to any of these things as well. So it just made sense to go in that direction. And he understands, the time, energy, and effort as a founder of these companies. So he's adopting this strategy and we're helping him execute it. Then there are other clients that have come to us and, they are essentially struggling with making decisions because the strategy hasn't been clarified. It hasn't been said, oh, we're the house of brand strategy or we're the branded house strategy. So anytime a new program, this is happening a lot in our nonprofit clients. So I'll say program and organization. So anytime a new program is developed, which, for a nonprofit organization, they have programs perhaps that they've had around forever. And then as needs change or needs arise, new programs, new projects, new initiatives come and, sort of sprout out of need. And it's like, okay, well, does this need its own website? Does this need its own name distinct from anything else? Does this need its own logo and brand messaging and all of the questions? And so we've just been helping folks navigate those waters. And in some cases, a client has gone the way of the house of brands, where they have an external website and its own logo. And they are essentially people that are interacting with that sub-brand, if you will, have no idea of the parent organization. And that's actually not what they want. They want there to be connection between this is the organization that runs this program. And so then we're kind of transitioning folks from this house of brands into a branded house. And that's a lot of work too, to transition between these models and these strategies is not a small feat. It's completely reorganizing everything and restructuring, and change is hard.
Yeah. So when people ask you, is there just one rule of thumb to follow? What kind of response do you give them?
Well, I ask them, first and foremost, is the audience distinct enough between your programs or products or services or whatever it is, that it demands its own properties and its own real estate in the world. And so that's, if they say yes to that, then okay, that's sort of leaning me towards house of brands. And if then my second question is, okay, so do you have, if you want each of these to be distinct and on their own because they have their own audiences, what's the effort from a marketing standpoint that you're able to put behind them? And, you can grow it over time. It's not like you have to drop down $1 million like one of these big brands would be, but you do have to sort of carve out separate, you have to have different messaging and different, branding and all these things to consider. And so those have costs to them. So, just depending on how they answer those two questions, at least gives me enough evidence to point them in the right direction. Great.
And I imagine with all the channels that we have now with social media and so on, it actually can either grow or shrink the effort that you're doing. Sure. How many Facebook pages do we need to have now? Right, that kind of a question.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of complexity to it.
There sure is.
Every client is its own snowflake.
Yes.
Individual special snowflake.
Yeah. That's the way we like it.
It is the way we like it. Everyone has their own little interesting things.
Yeah. So that closes the feature segment of today's
episode.
I
think this is an ongoing thing that we can keep talking about in future episodes too, if folks are interested. There's a lot of different nuances we can look at and how to transition these things, or examples we've seen, best practices. Mm-hmm. So if folks are interested in talking more about that, shoot us a note. Certainly always comment in our videos themselves if you've got some ideas or some questions, and then send us emails. We love email. You can email us. I do. I mean, that was actually a lie. I respect
That
the
was a
email.
shocking statement coming from you,
I
actually.
I was feeling love for a moment to communicate. I love communication, but
Yes.
email is, so
Do
it's
you
a necessary
consider,
evil.
yeah, but do you consider your inbox kind of like a sacred area? You know what I mean? Like you don't want people, you don't want spam in there. You don't want like, you're just like, oh, why is this person communicating with me in this space? This is my space where I talk to people that I want to talk to or something. Do you view it in that way as kind of a sacred thing?
So this is sort of this is just me. But so for me, there's like of all the different ways people can communicate with me, the whole stratum of that. There's everything from like walking up to my door and knocking on it, or
That is
calling me
not
on the
preferred.
phone, or texting me, or emailing me, or sending me a tweet, or DMing me, which is somewhere in here,
Sure.
direct messaging me. So when I think about people communicating with me, I would so much rather they send me an email than they phone me. So it's all relative.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I
How
get
about you?
that.
Do you feel the same
Um,
way?
yeah, I'm not a phone person. And I've at times felt really pretty badly about it. Like I don't pick up the phone and call people. I do text people a lot and reach out that way. And that would be my way of like the texting replaces the phone for me. Sometimes if a close friend or family member were emailing me instead of calling me or texting me, I'd be like, oh, what's wrong?
Yeah.
If someone sat down and wrote a big thing out. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, like the phone, and I don't know if it's just, I have no idea. It's just always been that way with me. I don't call people, and people can call me. Like as an example, my husband and I when we were dating, we weren't married yet. We were living at opposite ends of the country. You know, I was in Seattle and he was here in Pittsburgh, and you would think we'd be on the phone for hours catching up, 15, 20 minutes, like every other day. Like, I don't know. I'm just not a big phone person, but that's just me.
Yeah. Well, so everybody's different, and that's maybe the point. Nonetheless, we do like people to communicate with us, and we would love to be able to answer more questions and really make sure we're providing the kind of information here on office hours that would be really useful. So we will buck up and read emails. How about that? Is that
We'll do it for you. Shift office hours audience. Also too, the other thing you can do is subscribe to our channel. There's a subscribe thing, somewhere in the somewhere. If you were at the beginning
Probably
of the
down
episode.
here somewhere.
Yeah. So hit that smash that subscribe button. Is that a thing? Is that what they say?
That's what the kids say. I think so.
But do that, and then you will be notified when we have these office hour things, and you'll get all of our latest whatever. And we put things like good stuff for people that are trying to do better in their marketing. So if you're trying to do better in your marketing, then this is the channel to subscribe to.
And we love your ideas. So we usually have a little bit of a how-to section, and I see that our time is a little bit short. Do we want to do that or tease a little bit? Do we have to fit this week? What do you think, Sarah? How should we wing this?
Well, we have enough time. 12 minutes seems. Am I right on the clock? I think we can do it.
Okay.
I have faith in us.
Then I do too. So what we were thinking about talking about this week was about copywriting. And so copywriting, meaning, of course, the writing of words for the purpose of communicating in advertising and other types of marketing.
Yes. And last week, if you were tuning in, of course you were tuning in, we talked a lot about copywriting and kind of, just like the best way to think about copywriting, just best practices. We kind of just sort of talked about that topic a little bit. We thought this week we could hone in for our how-to tutorial segment a little bit more, specifically, the kinds of copywriting that you would do for an advertisement, say in a print magazine. And so we thought we could break down some of those elements for you for the purposes of an advertisement. And we are going to be following along or using the teachings of Joseph Sugarman, which we also talked about last week. He's sort of a prolific copywriter. Really, they've been around since the 70s, had his own business catalog, and just wrote really, really great copy that made him lots and lots of money.
Do you have the book handy this time around? Yay. I love a visual, a little show and tell.
Yes. So yeah, we thought we could just go, there are 10 elements that we can kind of, these core elements that all kind of work together to create an advertisement. And just, they're foundational and help you perhaps in your copywriting efforts in general, not just for ads, but it's kind of, you could use these same core elements when thinking about a landing page, perhaps. They're not that dissimilar.
Sure.
Right? Okay. So, like I said, there are 10 elements. And so the first element, which seems, I think, obvious, but maybe it's not to all of you, which is a headline. What are you looking for? Are you looking for
I
the
was just
headline?
wondering if I could find an ad. I'm looking for a headline. I wonder if I could find an ad super handy. I'm seeing over
I have
here.
one.
Do you? Okay.
Well, it's the example.
Okay, great.
It's the example in the book. Do you see the headline? What do you think the headline is?
I think the headline is probably the biggest thing, which is Pocket CB.
You would be
Is that
right.
a CB radio? Is that what that?
It is.
How about that?
Yes.
It fits in your pocket.
It does. If it's in your pocket. Don't you want to buy it? I don't know if you can. It's from 1975, this ad.
Oh, shoot.
Well, you might be able to. But yeah, it's from September. How about that? It's September 1975.
So timely. So
Yeah.
timely.
We're like in a time capsule back to that year. So anyway, these things are still the same elements, even after all of those years. So you have your headline. It's big and bold, like we just showed you. Then there's the sub headline, and it can be smaller and it can give a little bit more context, if you will, to what you're trying to explain in the headline. As you saw, that headline was short. It was 2 words. So it's not a lot to go on. So a sub headline can kind of allow you to expand.
The headline catches the eye. And that's why it was the biggest thing. And then the subhead, once my eye has been caught, the next headline is going to help me decide to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yes. And then there's the photo, or maybe graphical illustration or some sort of graphical element. And that is obviously to get your attention on what this product is. And is this what you were thinking from the headline? Does it match your expectations? So that's number 3. Mm-hmm. And then number 4 is caption. So this is, again, caption is used in the web world as well. And people do read captions. They describe the photo or the illustration. So it's a really important element because, as I said, people actually do read those. And then if we're talking about web stuff, that caption can really help the user to understand what's happening in the image, especially if they're using a screen reader and they're visually impaired. So that caption is very important. What else? What's the number 5, Cynthia?
Number 5 was the actual main selling message, which is what when we say copy, sometimes we're saying all of these different things, but your core copy, which is your selling points, your main kind of things. I was trying to find another example for us. And
I don't have to keep holding this book up. There's a lot of copy. Like when you think about a catalog ad, or even, if you're flipping through who's flying these days, but if you are, the magazine, the airline magazine often has ads like this that are, there's more space and you have more time. You are a captive audience and you are going to read the finer points, which might be included in the copy.
Right.
Yeah. But what's important when you think about, oh my gosh, that's a lot of copy. And people these days, if they're not a captive audience in the airline, in an airplane, they might skim. Mm-hmm. And so if they skim, what's really important, I don't know if you can see it, are paragraph headings, which is like the boldish part above the copy block. So this helps to, break up the text. And if somebody was just skimming, they could get the general sense of things without actually reading those paragraphs.
Right. So, I think over time, there are sort of trends in advertising, and certainly the form that you say, like a catalog can carry more copy than a magazine ad maybe, but even within a certain form, there are different trends over time. And so what it used to be that we would have, and that 1975 ad is a good example of, even though it's like a full page magazine ad, that's a lot of words. And now they would probably have boiled that down more and given more prominence and visual to to the pictures and maybe just some headlines, and even just having white space.
Yeah.
Think about
Yeah.
like,
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm going to skip ahead to number 10. Wait, number 10? Yeah. Overall layout. So I think when you think about all these components and putting them together, the overall appearance and how you lay them out and how you design them is going to help with, people's understanding and comprehension of the ad at a quick glance. And so, as you say, sometimes some of these trends, the amount of copy, sheer amount of copy that used to be in ads has really fallen out. But also sometimes we see that making a comeback. I think you have to evaluate when you're trying to, depending on the campaign, if copy could work in your advantage.
Sure. I found some examples, which is why my eyes were all over the place. I was trying to find just exactly this to share. So here I've done a little search for classic Apple print ad, and this is the kind of ad I was thinking about. And this is the time frame on this. This would have been early 80s, so a little bit after that 1975 ad. Similar kind of a thing where we've got a super big, punchy, heavily branded typeface that we're using. Very big picture, and then the fair amount of copy really with all these different selling points, and they've done a little fancy, fitting it around and so on.
So there's the layout.
And then you jump forward a few more years, or and there's less copy. Look how they're playing with the white space here. Now we're starting to know who Apple is, so their brand becomes more important to us. So you can kind of see the evolution of it, and yet the same players that you were talking about, Sarah, remain there.
Right. Yeah. And then look at the one to the left, the hand on the mouse. That's obviously void of a huge copy block there. And where's the brand even?
It's up here. It's just under this little.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, element number 7 is your logo and having your logo. And so you can see in terms of, as you evaluate the layout, it could be very small because you really, what do you want people to read? What do you want them to absorb? And so those decisions can be made based on your objectives. So
with so many great, so back when Apple was brand new, and even before they had their current fonts and things, that they were really trying to make you remember the Apple, and their logo was fairly prominent. Then as time went on, it became a little bit less of the kind of message in some ways. Then all of a sudden, here's a print ad where they're saying, this is Apple, but we're changing. There's a lot of different stories being told. Until you finally get to the iPod, and they're not even talking about themselves. The logo is literally not even on that ad.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Apple, just really amazing advertisements throughout the year, whether it be print or TV. They do a pretty good job.
Absolutely. It's always fun to go back to that.
Yeah. Now, one of the elements Joseph Sugarman lists is number 8, is price. And I think, this is one where a lot of advertisers don't put price of the product in there. And I think when it comes to a catalog, which is what he wrote, price would be there. I think that's an important element. But in some of those ads, like you just showed, we're not showing the price. So I think that's kind of maybe fallen away, and depends on the product, obviously. But
it depends on what your story is. If your story is, we've lowered the price, or our price is so exceptional that you need to see it. I mean, I can think of times where there was like a car that was being offered to the masses, and it was like, you could have this car for as little as $10,000. I was like, what? That was the whole story.
Right.
Then that's a time to put the price.
Sure.
Other times you don't want people to focus on the price. You want, because the whole branding and advertising thing is a journey, we're just trying to make people take the one next step. And so we don't want to give them everything.
Right. We want to spoon feed it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the price is, I guess, sort of a dependable variable that you may or may not use. And then 9 is I don't know if I would call it this, response device. I think I call it call to action, or CTA. But this is really, giving the person who's looking at the ad a way to respond to the ad. Do they call a number? Do they go to a website? In the case of some, products, they might put a coupon or an offer in the actual ad. You rip it out and take it into the, into the place. So some way for the user to act. How do you want them to? What do you want them to do after this ad, after they read it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if that's not there, then you're just doing it really for awareness, with the idea that they're going to see some parts of this message over time, and eventually there will be the call to action. Maybe the first couple times you see the, the iTunes, music thing with all the rainbowy colors and the people listening to things, and you're just like, oh, that looks interesting. And they're just really trying to plant little seeds. But eventually you've got to have them act. And so somewhere in your larger campaign, there's got to be something that says, here's how to give me money and get your thing.
Yeah, and I think to that point, an ad is created or an ad concept is created, and then you determine, okay, here are all the places we're going to put this ad, and then you have to take that concept and build it out for that particular medium. So, you might have a magazine ad where you have more space. So that there you use the headline, the image, the copy blocks, the call to action. Then you have a space much smaller, let's say a banner ad. Well, there you only use the headline and it's clickable to your landing page. So, you have to really evaluate where the ad is going to be and what you can do, but, give people some continuity between, if you're running a campaign, have some of those pieces and elements be consistent throughout so that they can get a sense, oh, okay, I saw this on the bus. I'm now seeing it in Facebook. I'm interested at this point, all the touches. So those are the 10, just to remind, 10 is the overall layout. We kind of jumped ahead on that one, but those are the main components. That is our how-to. Certainly we could go a lot deeper and talk about a lot of different things, but that is your sort of 12-minute overview, or 13-minute, I think we went over. So thank you for your patience, folks.
Yeah, I actually wanted, so there's our 10 things, and not all of them are going to be present in every single advertisement. As we were kind of talking through, I was thinking about like even the beginning of advertising. One of the sort of like the forefathers of modern advertising is an artist, Leonetto Capiello, and I have a print of one of his posters elsewhere in my apartment here. But so he was working in France, but originally Italian, and created many of the famous alcohol posters that you might have. You've seen. Oh, I'm sure so many, like Campari, Cinzano, and so on. But so this one I wanted to highlight because look at how, he was this is a poster that would have been somewhere in Paris, perhaps outside of, I don't know if they had the metro then. But so here's your headline. Here's sort of a subhead, and then a little bit of extra detail, but and definitely a large image. And his own little signature, because he's a good marketer.
That's the logo.
But so a lot of those core elements, depending on the situation, maybe you're just trying to do a few different things. You don't need to have all 12 of them, right. But the ones that you do have need to have super impressive impact.
Yes. So I will just say that those are the 10 elements, but what Joseph Sugarman says, it's like his axiom, his sort of big thing that you must remember. Yes, you have all these 10 elements, but all of the elements in an advertisement are designed to do one thing and one thing only, which is to get you to read the first sentence of copy. So everything has to be designed around that particular idea, in his opinion.
And he's a man who knows what he's talking about.
He does know what he's talking about.
Mr. Sugarman, for helping us out, helping us learn.
Cool. Well, shall we say goodbye for now to all of the viewers?
Yeah, we'll say goodbye. Well, only knowing that we'll be back again next week, again at noon on Friday, to talk more about whatever new and interesting things seem interesting now that in the world of advertising, as October and the rest of the year roll along.
It will be October next Friday. Yes.
I know.
So
crazy.
Yay.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
All right,